I mean, last year, I watch every NFL game on during the preseason, and actually for the regular season. If I'm home and there's a game on, I'm watching it. But last summer, I looked at Aaron Rodgers playing a half a game in the preseason. I saw I saw so many guys. Josh Allen played a couple of games where he spent almost a half on the field. I think Jalen Hurts needs it. And I know about the injury risk, but I think if you were to tell Jalen Hurts to go out there for a quarter and to not run the football under any situation, and if the rush is coming, throw it away. Just have him play a very safe kind of preseason game. I think he could benefit from it.
Mm.
Welcome back in. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network, along with Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks. I am Rob Ellis, thrilled to be joined by our next guest. He has been calling Eagles games since 1977, and I believe, Merrill, even maybe before that as a color analyst as well, but entering what is his 46th season, Merrill?
40.
Okay. Merrill, good to see you. That the one and only, the GOAT, Merrill Reese. What's up, Merrill? How are you?
I'm well. I'm looking forward to a week from tonight when we get to see a real game.
Yes.
Amen.
I'm surprised
Amen.
you're not on the back nine somewhere.
Can't wait.
Well, I was on the front nine about an hour ago.
How did we hit him, Merrill? Did we hit him straight today? How do we do?
Straight. I am very, very straight, but I can hear it land.
Straight but not far. Hey, you'll take something. It's not bad. It could be worse, right? At least you're staying straight.
Oh, I'm okay. I can play.
Right.
I never had a chance to ask you, what is your handicap?
It's it generally runs between 12 and 14.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Not bad. Not bad.
Nice.
Merrill,
Okay.
let's talk about it because we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm curious because I know you called the large bulk of his games here, but your good friend Dick Vermeil going into the Hall of Fame this weekend in Canton, and after a long journey, that's for sure. Just give us your impressions. You saw him as a broadcaster. You were around him quite a bit as well. You saw him, as a Ram and chief coach as well. What does this mean for you and seeing that guy go in, and how big a thrill is that?
I'm so happy. I've been around a lot of very, very good coaches, but in my experience, he's the best. He's the guy who has more charisma than any head coach I've ever been around. There have been some really good head coaches. Andy Reid did a great job here for 14 years. But to me, there was something so special about Dick Vermeil. A very, very unusual man, a great communicator, somebody who this city fell in love with, and somebody who I am glad came back here to nest after all was said and done. So I'm thrilled for Dick Vermeil.
Yeah.
Merrill, are you surprised he got in? You surprised he got in considering he had that 14-year gap where he didn't coach?
Yeah, but then he came back after that 14 years and won a Super Bowl in St. Louis. And then he did good things in Kansas City. He's been great wherever he's been. And he is so special, Derek. I just had no doubt that he would get in. It was only a question of when.
Merrill, let's dive into this year's squad. A lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation. The bar's been set high because of what they did last year and added some really good players. I mean, you look back at this offseason, Merrill. I mean, they get A.J. Brown, they get Hassan Reddick, and I'm just to name a few, James Bradbury. The fans are really, really looking forward to this season. What are your thoughts?
I'm looking forward to it too. I am. I think they're a team that has filled a lot of needs on this roster. I think they should be good. I don't go by what I see at training camp every day. For one thing, I'm busy looking at guys and identifying them, going through the mental aspects of play-by-play. But if somebody drops a pass or somebody throws an interception, it doesn't mean that much to me because I've seen great things happen on the practice field and not translate to the game and vice versa.
Yep.
So I'll make more realistic opinions next week when we see them against the Lions. But again, and I know that the regulars aren't going to play very much. I just hope, and this is just my hope, and it's probably going to be unfulfilled. I'd like to see Jalen Hurts play a full quarter in a couple of preseason games to acquire the timing that he needs with A.J. Brown, the other receivers, and just a feel for the offense. I mean, last year, I watch every NFL game on during the preseason, and actually for the regular season. If I'm home and there's a game on, I'm watching it. But last summer, I looked at Aaron Rodgers playing a half a game in the preseason. I saw I saw so many guys. Josh Allen played a couple of games where he spent almost a half on the field. I think Jalen Hurts needs it. And I know about the injury risk, but I think if you were to tell Jalen Hurts to go out there for a quarter and to not run the football under any situation, and if the rush is coming, throw it away. Just have him play a very safe kind of preseason game. I think he could benefit from it.
Let me ask you this, Merrill. One of the people on the stream want to say, when the Eagles had no expectation, they usually go in and have a great season, a la the 2017 season. The next year, they had expectation. They played less than what they thought they were going to play. With the high expectation going into this year, do you see this team, kind of falling short, or is Nick Sirianni the type of coach now that for what you've seen, able to get these guys going in the right direction?
Well, they like him, Barrett. They like him a lot. They respond to him. They play hard for him. And I think that he himself is growing. This is his second year as an NFL head coach. So there's a growth period for him and the staff also. But I don't think that will hold them back. I don't. And I don't think expectations have anything to do with it. I mean, you look at that next year, they went back to the playoffs. They won the double doink game in Chicago. They could have won again. They had the game that was unfortunate in New Orleans, where they were probably a reception or so away from beating the Saints. So a lot of things can happen. I don't think the expectations of the media, the expectations of the fans have that much to do with what really happens. Most of the time, expectations are high in August. And many times those expectations fall by the end of September. You know what?
Merrill, I think there we go. Got you back.
You mentioned 2017. That team started off so-so with a win and a loss. And in those first few weeks, they lost a lot of people. They lost Jason Peters. They lost Jordan Hicks, their best linebacker. They lost Chris Maragos, the Ghost, their best
special team. Yep.
They lost Caleb Sturgis, their kicker. So they end up plucking Jake Elliott off of the Cincinnati Bengals practice squad. And then the next week they come back and they have a lead, then they lose a lead, and they're about to go down to the Giants. And Alshon Jeffrey sets them up. Jeffrey makes a 17-yard reception with 1 second left, and Elliott boots a 61-yard field goal, and the whole season turned around. That whole season turned around on that one kick. And it was amazing the way that team suddenly came to life. So who knows what can motivate a team? Who knows what is going to change this season for better or for worse? The one thing I always warn people when they say this is such a good season, a good team, is that the NFL is a war of attrition. And there are people who go down each and every week. I'd have a much better idea of telling you what this team is going to be like if somebody can tell me the respective lineups of the Eagles and the Cowboys on December 24th. Then we have a good idea of who's standing and how things are going. But there's so many unknowns. There's the bounces of the ball. There's a bad call here and there. There are so many things that can happen. You can take a team that could potentially be 11-6. You take a team that could be 11-6, and you remove the wrong three pieces, and they could just as easily be 8-9.
Hey, Merrill, Merrill, which position group will you be watching the closest to see how it unfolds in terms of who stays and who goes?
In terms, as far as the cuts are concerned,
Yes. Yep.
wide receiver.
Yep.
Wide
It's a good
receiver.
one. It's a good
I
one.
think very competitive. I don't know. They've said good things about Jalen Rager lately, and he's had a pretty good camp, if that means anything. I thought he would be on his way, and I think that he would probably be better off on his way because the fans are tough on him. They've been frustrated by a first-round draft choice who hasn't played like a first-round draft choice, and all he has to do is make one mistake, and they're booing him. I think he needs a fresh start someplace else, and I think he could be a pretty good receiver, but I don't think the place for him. And when I look at this roster, and I see the biggest addition, when I say A.J. Brown, who I think is going to have a tremendous impact on this team, and Devontae Smith, who is outstanding, and then you have the speed in Quez Watkins, and you have Zach here, and does Greg Ward make the team? I don't know. And good little receiver who catches everything and gets open.
That's right.
And there's another guy I can't wait to see next week, and he's a guy that kept me up late on Saturday nights when Utah played, by the name of Britton Covey. He could be an X factor because he is such an explosive return man. Scored 2 touchdowns against Ohio State, and he would do something every game. Now he's 26 years old, and he's about my size, and but he's also listed as a wide receiver, and he's a pretty good option at training camp. Every day he makes a couple of good catches. So where are you going to narrow this down to 5? Are you going to carry 6 wide receivers? That seems heavy to me.
Yeah, agreed, Merrill. So Merrill, I know you're at practice every day, but what's the off-season approach? I'm curious for you. I mean, obviously you've been doing it for a long time, but do you watch film? Do you just get away from it? Do you relax? What are the summer and the off months entail before we get it cranked up a week from today?
Well, I always relax. I always play my share of golf, probably more than my share of golf. But at the same time, I do prepare for the season. I sit here with cards of numbers.
Unbelievable.
Cindy will start calling out numbers and start yelling things back. Like, when he yells out 35, I'll start yelling out there's a wide receiver, Zonovan Knight, for the New York Jets. So I'll start learning all of that stuff. So but it will begin next week. But I pay a lot of attention to the draft, and I get as much information as I possibly can. Tell you guys something funny. Every year I go, and I know we can use the computer for certain things, and I do. I'm computer savvy. I mean, I can't make magical things happen like my son. But I can email and I can text and do all of that stuff, Google. But one of the things I do, I go into a bookstore. I went into Barnes & Noble last week, and I like to get a couple of the preseason football magazines, so that and much of the information in there is put in there by beat writers who they freelance. And so I want to find out stuff about the New York Jets for next week. More about last season, what their expectations are, who to watch in the Jets camp, go over their draft picks, who's on the hot seat, so to speak. That's why I love the preseason football previews. So I went to the Barnes & Noble last week, and they had a separate stand for football magazines. And there were 7 football magazines out there, 7 of them. All of them were fantasy. They were all fantasy football magazines, for which I have no use. I mean, it's great to compare the roster, but they don't give the rosters. They don't tell you much about last season. It's all these ratings, who to draft in your fantasy draft. And I understand the fascination with that. And I mean, my son loves fantasy football, and so does America. And I understand the gambling aspect of this game and what goes into it, but I still want to know about the game. And finally, I went online and found that I was able to order a football preview. But it's a thing of the past.
Barrett, you're muted. You're muted.
That's tough because I do the same thing for my college football when I'm trying to look up players and trying to figure out, you don't have it anymore.
Amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, no question. Merrill, so let's look at the other side of the ball. Jonathan Gannon is a guy who was sought after, had a couple interviews in the offseason. He too, given guys like Hassan Reddick and James Bradbury, they draft Jordan Davis, they draft the Kobe Dean. That was a defense that was stable, I guess, last year, but wasn't one that was all that effective in terms of a pass rush, turnovers, giving the offense the ball in short field positions. What are your expectations of the defense?
I think they're going to be very, very good. I really do. I think Jonathan Gannon is a very bright coach, extremely bright. If this team makes the playoffs, he's gone. If this team makes the playoffs, he's a head coach someplace next year. He came close in Houston and Denver, and I think he's on the verge. But he's a very bright 39-year-old coach who's been in the league for 15 years. He's got 15 years of coaching experience. He knows what he's doing. I know the fans got on him and the talk shows got on him last year because he was very conservative, but he had to be. He didn't have all the pieces. He had to play with what he had. Now you add James Bradbury, so you have two fine corners with Bradbury on one side, and I mean, look what you have now. You have linebackers. Linebacker might be for this team. And it hasn't been a long time, but when you have Bradbury and Slay, and then you add Kazir White, and you add somebody like the Kobe Dean. The Kobe Dean is so smart. I mean, he grasped this offense. He learned this offense in about an hour. That's how bright former engineering major is. He's really a bright young man. I love Jordan Davis. I mean, I think Jordan Davis is going to make everybody else on that defensive line better. I wouldn't be surprised. Fletcher Cox has been criticized over the last year or so because his play is not what it was when he was the best defensive tackle or one of the best defensive tackles in the league. But I think when he's going to be rested and he plays in certain spots, you put him in there, there's nothing he can't do. And Hargrave, and you have Brandon Graham, who's 100% right now. He came back. He's been healthy for months. I always was told that an Achilles tendon tear took a year and a half, but I saw him in March on the golf course, and he was fine.
Yep.
So I think he'll help. Josh Sweat, he's something. Hassan Reddick is going to be a big addition as an edge rusher, as a linebacker. But I think this defense is loaded. I really do. I think the single best department, or today they call them the room on a team, is your offensive line. I think the offensive line, I don't think there's a better one in the NFL. It's got pros and some ascending players, but three legitimate all pros on that defensive line in Kelsey, Mailata, and Lane Johnson. So then you add the guards. Landon Dickerson looks like he could be an all pro. And Ciamalo is a good football player. That's a great offensive line. Yeah. But this defensive line could be pretty good too. And the defensive line, if it gets the pressure, will make the rest of that defense that much better. And then they can just tee off on quarterbacks.
We need that pass rush. In the
really.
worst way.
My goodness.
Yeah, no question about that.
Your overall sense on run pass ratio, what would be the best run pass ratio, considering the fact that I think that Jalen Hurts is going to play well, the offensive line able to run block and pass block, the new addition of AJ Brown. What would you say is the healthiest percentage rate of run to pass ratio for this team in order to be successful?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, Barrett. If this team is playing really well and starts winning games, it's going to be a run-heavy, run-pass ratio, and that won't be tell the story, because what they want to do is build a lead, and then late in the game they start handing the football off.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think I think they're going to throw more than they did last year. Last year the passing game was stuttering a little bit, and they decided we'll play a low risk, give the football off type of offense. This year, I think they'll be more balanced, and I think you'll see more passing early. But if they build a lead, then they'll give it to Miles, or they'll give it to Boston Scott, or they'll give it to Kenneth Gainwell, but they'll pound away. They will. But what the stat sheet will show that they've run as much or more than they've passed, but statistically, it doesn't tell the story, because when they were building that lead, they were throwing with success.
Yeah. Hey, Merrill, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's still a passing lead.
We've had a lot of football people on this show the last couple of weeks, and I have to ask you as well, because you've covered this team for so long. You know the inner working mechanisms of what they think and how they do things. What's your perspective on Miles Sanders being with this team beyond this season, based on how they view the running back position?
I think it depends on this season. If he has a big year, let's say he gains 1,200 yards plus and catches the ball well, I think they'll re-sign him. I don't hate because he's still young, and because he's a really good guy. Everybody likes him. He's uplifting. He represents the franchise well. I don't think he's in the category of, say, of Zach Ertz, who had been here for so long, approaching 30. I mean, he'll still be a young running back. Now, the big thing about Miles, that brings me back to my old Buddy Ryan adage, when Buddy said durability is as important as ability. Mm-hmm. And then he has not been durable. He's had a lot of nicks and bruises that have kept him out of games. But he's got to play 14 games this year. Mm. And if he plays well, I think they've got to think long and hard about extending his contract and keeping him here.
Merrill, you are the best, man. We cannot wait for yet another season with yourself and Mike Quick. It is a pleasure to listen to you guys, and always fun talking some football with you before the season gets started. So, Merrill, thanks for a couple minutes, man. Enjoy.
Thank you, Merrill.
Back at it in a week, man. Can't wait.
I can't wait either. It's great to see you guys. I enjoy listening to all of you, and I respect all of your opinions and all of your knowledge. So thank you for having me on. It's my pleasure. And now I can go back on the golf course. No.
There you go.
You got it.
There you go.
Always fun, man. And Merrill can play. Merrill can play. Yeah.
Tonight, I am going to go to Citizens Bank Park because they are honoring my dear friend Dan Baker on 50 years as the public address announcer, and I'm very, very honored to be there as one of his guests.
And a nicer human being you will never meet than Dan Baker.
Wonderful.
That's right.
The nice. Merrill, I'm sorry. Let me just hit one thing with you before we go. Having done what you've done as long as you have, we just recently lost Vin Scully, one of the all-timers. And in addition, I mean, he worked solo. He did simulcast TV and radio, 67 years with the Dodgers. Just give me your thoughts on Vin Scully.
Absolutely wonderful. I'm sorry that I was unable to hear him more than I heard him, because he was a Dodgers announcer, but I heard him doing golf, and I heard him doing football, and I heard him on the network stuff that he did. But my son, who's out in California and has been there for the last 20 years, he used to just pick up the phone and call me and say, "Dad, listen to Vin Scully." He's great. And I did a book a number of years ago called Sportscasting, Turning Your Passion into a Profession. And to do the various chapters, I interviewed different people about their sports. And I did the last interview anybody ever did with Harry Callis at the Newtown Grill about a month before he passed away. And I talked to him about baseball and all the different aspects about his career and his philosophy of what you do in the course of a game to be sharp and to be interesting. And as we wrapped up the interview, I said, Harry, you are the absolute best. And Harry turned to me and he said, I appreciate that. He said, but Vin Scully is the best. Vin Scully is the best who ever lived. So when Harry Callis can say Vin Scully is the best who ever lived, that just tells you how great Vin Scully really was.
Yep.
Yeah. Well said. Well said,
Well
Merrill.
said,
Perfect. Perfect. We appreciate your time today, Merrill. Have fun on the course. Enjoy your weekend, and thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Merrill.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Merrill. Yeah, it's unbelievable. But yeah, that is high praise. That is high praise for sure. Coming from Harry Callis, who was in his own right just flat out incredible. All right, so let's come back, guys, and we'll get to some of the football stuff that we didn't touch on yet, and we'll dig into some other things, our usual, the birthdays and all the good stuff. What's the matter?
No, because you said the football stuff we didn't get to because we're talking about Animal Kingdom. Still can't get over that. Embarrassing. I'm gonna whoop a monkey's ass.
That's a shirt we got to get, man. I'm gonna whoop a monkey's ass. That's the best. Oh my god. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Don't forget, we got to do the helmets. We still have the NFC helmets.
We'll do helmets. We'll do games. Maybe we'll hold free agents till Monday. I don't know what we're gonna do. We got a lot in store. Don't go anywhere. You never know what you're gonna get. So Barrett, Derek, Rob, here we are. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Right back.